Students of African history here at LCSC, Professor Eric Martin, and this seems like a good time to connect a little bit and just make sure we're all on the same page and everything is going as planned, right? So the point of this video is to review a couple of things that we've done so far, preview a couple of things, maybe put to bed any anxieties you might be having, and just sort of, reconnect, right? So first off, let's talk about your grades. Canvas cannot tell you what your overall grade is in this class. I cannot emphasize that enough times. I wish I could turn the feature off because all it does is generate panic for the most part. Okay? If you want to know what your grade is in this class, look at your raw scores and then play with that. And if you've never gotten below an 80% in anything that you've submitted, your grade can't be lower than 80%. It's probably just worth having a personal conversation with me, okay? But Canvas has trouble telling you what your overall grade is. Additionally, if for whatever good reason you haven't submitted something, or not haven't submitted something, you submitted something late, I might not have graded that yet. I section off my time, right? And I get a block of time to grade even batuta papers. I hit it, I move on. And if yours comes later, that's I don't necessarily pop to it right away. You got to subscribe to the gold service for that, right? Okay. Let's talk about your even batuta primary source analyses, because you got a Sundiata source analyses coming up. They're pretty good for the most part. Wide variety of grades, always is. The biggest issues that I had with the even batuta primary sources is one, convincing me you actually read the material, as opposed to go online and find material that covered stuff that wasn't even in our book. It's kind of a hand. All right. So you got to convince me you read the book. That's the first thing. And then the other part with the primary source is you're supposed to be using that to read between the lines. What can we learn about medieval Africa from that even batuta source? And some of y'all did a really great job using even batuta's biases, or the idea of hospitality, or any of that kind of stuff, reading between the lines on that. So just keep working with that, because it's going to continue to come up. And don't forget to look at the formal essay due at the end of the semester, in which you're going to use this material. So you want to get yourself set up so it's not all a big ordeal. Now, the other big thing that seemed to come up for some of y'all was this is formal writing, right? Some of it read like a first draft. It might have been a good first draft, but it read like a first draft. All right? You want to get another set of eyes on that and get it cleaned up. You want to eliminate all the first person that you can. You want to strengthen your thesis, right? One of the things that we can learn from this primary source is Ibn Batuta's take on Islam as it's practiced, outside of his home region, or whatever your thesis was. But the stronger thesis, and then the building blocks for the argument. For the purposes of this class, we're historians. Historians use footnotes. There's a video in the resource warehouse, online thing, on how to do footnotes. They're easy, but do them. And then the other issue with some of y'all's primary sources is if it said 750 words or 3 pages is the minimum, and yours was you know, exactly 3 pages, 750 words. You left like 25% of it on the table. So try to get to the higher mark. It doesn't mean you can't get an A by doing only 3 pages. It just means you don't give yourself a lot of room for error. And come on, do the minimum. All right. Okay. So we've got a deal coming up with Sundiata. We're just playing the same game again with the primary source on Sundiata. Let's talk about that a little bit. Last week you watched that film Quieta, Heritage of the Griot. Some of y'all's discussion posts pretty cool about that. This should give you a setup for going into the story to kind of have a visual component of what's up. Use the discussion boards on Sundiata for what they're for. Ask questions as you go. What just happened? Right? Am I understanding this correctly? Otherwise, I just assume you're reading it along and it's working out just fine. You guys answer each other's questions, right? I'm not determined to, crack the whip on y'all to have like this full elaborate discussion board. You guys have a lot going on. However, use it for what it's for. If for the optional part of the discussion board, ask questions to each other and have that kind of side conversation going on, so that when it comes time to have some grand conclusions about Sundiata and to write your primary source analysis, you've got some ideas. It is not against the law in the discussion boards to talk with each other about, hey, this section in this part of the book, do you think that it works when I'm trying to talk about culture? Do you think that's a good example? Run that by each other. All right. That's what we've been doing. Let me talk for a minute about what we are about to do, sort of. Okay, so this coming week, week 5, we're going to finish up the Sundiata conversation. So read away, enjoy that. It's a fun book. The week after that, and so that I don't generate any confusion, I'm just going to drop down to the bottom right hand side of the page. Okay, so we get to the week by week thing. By the way, the resource warehouse thing I was talking about is down here, writing guidelines, right? You click on that thing and all kinds of information about how to do the writing for history assignments is in here. And what could be better than more videos by me, huh? Okay. In the modules here, right? I got them all laid out, but I got a whole bunch of draft, because that stuff is sort of half-baked, and in some cases I've just got the ingredients out, right? But here's what we're doing this week. It's week 5. It's the Sundiata stuff. We've already talked about that. The week after that, week 6, we're slowing it down, sort of. We're just going to focus on one episode of Basil Davidson. And in part, it'll give you a chance to recuperate from the last couple of weeks. And in part, it'll give you a chance to get yourself organized for week 7, 8, and 9. We're going to get into some Atlantic slave trade stuff. I'm going to provide you the readings for that. In my head, I understand how we're going to do it. I do not have it outlined on the in the modules yet. I want to try to get that done before this Sunday. Okay, so the mission is for you to kind of have so maybe by Sunday, I kind of unlock up to pretty close to spring break about what's going on. I know some of y'all are trying to work ahead. I don't know how smart that is, but you want to be able to work somewhat ahead, right? That's the way, our time works. So I'm hoping to get these things opened up so you have a pretty good idea about what's happening between now and spring break. One last reminder, and then I think I'm done. Down here at the very end, formal essay. All course materials plus at least one pre-approved outside reading. Don't forget about that. All right, be thinking about it. I've got some, some of you guys have become interested in some of the stuff we're talking about right now and have started asking about, sources, medieval Africa. Totally reasonable. Some of y'all, for whatever reason, have an interest in more 20th century African stuff, and you've asked about being able to use that kind of stuff. I'm open to just about anything. In terms of a pre-approved outside reading that can be written by a historian. You could use a piece of literature, something like Things Fall Apart, if you wanted to, if it's written by an African, right? I can see that. So think about what you might be interested in. There was somebody on one of the discussion boards that said something about hoping we'd get into West African music a little bit more. It's funny you bring that up, right? Because that's one of the things that's taken a little bit of a hit in my online version of the class. In my face-to-face version in the class, when you come in, I usually have some form of African music playing, and it is usually I like Fela Kuti. So there's a lot of Fela Kuti that gets played. There's a lot of cool stuff on Fela Kuti, but Fela Kuti is not the only, person playing Afro pop, and maybe Afro pop's not your thing. Maybe there is other styles of African music. My point is, that could be a cool thing if that's a subject you wanted to get into. Anyway, I think that's everything I have to say. I'm just kind of running this as a quick announcement to check in with everyone, make sure everything's all good. Do not panic. Carry a towel. Connect with me through Zoom office hours. Connect with me through the inbox if you've got questions. Let's just make sure everything's good and carry forward. All right. Enjoy your historical studies.